Hey friends, welcome back. We'll talk about the third part of this: vision, schedule, and budget. Vision, schedule, and budget, and sort of see if we can't get all these topics on the table today, and then break it down from there over time. But it's a pretty simple process, as I've discussed. But the budget funds your schedule, which fulfills your mission. What is contained in your budget? Your family expenses plus ministry expenses. And to understand the ministry expenses comes from understanding what your schedule is, which fulfills your vision. And so, if you've never evangelized before, you're going to have some questions about what do I need in this work. That's legit. Guys like me, other guys, ask them what they spend on different items. We can talk about that in a second. But you take your family budget, whether you're single or have a family, and you look at what you're spending. And then you adjust your spending in a sense if you're doing full-time ministry work. And so that means you have to have some discernment. Hey, we're not going to do this anymore since I'm not working here at this place anymore. I'm going to be mission work full-time. And those are things that you have to figure out. But you create a missionary budget. And one thing on the missionary family budget, again, whether you're single or have a family, it's not a goal to live in poverty. The goal is not to have the lowest amount possible that you can survive on. That's not the way to look at it. You're not trying to starve your family or yourself. You do want to scale your family or yourself in a way that facilitates the schedule and the vision. Let me give you an example. All right, so in my case, I was living in a greater part of Atlanta when I began preaching full time. At some point, the Lord sort of led me to move into Buckhead, which is in the center of the city, basically in a sense, sell my car, and I moved in the basement of a family. And so I got to walk to the MARTA and walk places. Lord was trying to get me to be a missionary in the city and teach me what that was about. So my budget for my life changed significantly to not have other things that I had before. Car, as an example, when I was living, outside the city, stuff like that. What facilitates your vision, your schedule to fulfill your vision? That's what I'm talking about. So, if you are if you want to move in a community where you don't have to have a car and the houses cost a certain thing, then factor that together. That becomes part of your budget. What my family and I experienced when I got married is we went to a really good church. We really enjoyed it. People there, because we were a missionary family, since they gave us clothes for our children. So for a long time, we didn't purchase clothes for our children. That saved a lot of money. And see, things like that will happen potentially happen if you become an official missionary family. In other words, what that means is you're not working a job and evangelizing. You're moving in the realm of living by faith as a missionary family or as a missionary. People will do things for you because they understand that your focus is shifted some. So there are things like that will, Lord willing, happen to you, and people try to help you out to do the work. That's in that transition. So again, what I would say right here, I know this is general language, and if you have specific questions, then you got to call me. Let's talk about it. But I want to create a budget that fills that schedule and which fulfills your vision. Let's go back to the Hixson example I mentioned on the other two videos. Let's say you're going to move into Hixson to make that area a Christian community. Then you want to find a strategic place to live, whereby you can reach the city, pretty much have things equidistant from you. So going east, west, north, south, you want to kind of be in the center of the city is what I would say to start with. So you want to try to find a place if possible that's kind of in the center of the city. That's costs a certain thing. I don't know what it is. Hey, you tell your partners, hey, we want to move into here, put us in the middle of the city. We're going to be right by this church, which we're going to work out of, and that costs X, Y, Z. See, the plan, the budget is developed by your vision and your schedule to fulfill that vision. If you're going to move into a small community, you're going to have a place in the crack neighborhood, in the most difficult neighborhood, in the most difficult city in the country, where you probably won't have to travel far because you're going to be going door to door and working the community. The expense is going to be different. So if you're going to move into a place, like I said before, Dixon, you want to have a group of people who are the most disciple people possible. That's going to necessitate certain needs and so forth. So that's how you think about it. It's not a mystical situation. There's no, it's just facts. If you have an idea of what you're going to do and how. And then, as an evangelist, my ministry needs are very limited: tracts, a Bible, an amp, stuff like that. My most significant expenses are more transportation expenses. And if I'm gonna, when I was in Atlanta, riding the MARTA back and forth, when I was single, that was my biggest that was my biggest expense. I had a Bible, didn't use tracts much, and then I didn't use an app either. So I just had to get some more of the Bible. Meals and transportation, that's what was my biggest cost when I was single. If we're going to now with Sportsman Outreach, the way it's organized, we have quite a bit of administrative costs, and so my costs have changed. But that's just to get the job done. If we're going to, so now my costs are not, my transportation costs are the most prevalent thing that we have. So anyway, stuff like that, you can think it through. It's not complicated. And then again, if you add, so let's say you're an evangelist and you're adding trips outside of where you live. If you're going to go with us to London or, Mexico City or somewhere at the Super Bowl, that's going to cost you something. Factor that in as well. That goes back to the schedule, goes back to your vision. And then sometimes you start off with a vision and then it expands, and there's more costs associated with that expansion, which I just said about Sports Fan. Or if you're going to go, I travel out of town. Remember, a friend of mine said, as an evangelist to an evangelist, he said, make sure you take care of your hometown first before you start traveling. That was a lesson I learned. So I wasn't trying to travel everywhere, and I was but there were certain things, sporting events, where I personally travel. I know some guys, they travel all the time, and that's what they do, and they stay in places along the way and with friends and so forth. So it really boils down to, what is your vision? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Who are you trying to reach? The schedule to reach that, and then a budget factors that in. And so then, basically the things that shift when you do full-time mission work is you're probably doing less entertaining things in life. If, hey, as a single guy, it was all about the prayer of the Bible and preaching. With a family, depends on what your children, what ages there are, but you may or may not take an annual trip somewhere together. I just don't know. None of that stuff is spiritual in a sense. There's always, since there's no right or wrong answer. Can I go on a 2-week trip with my family somewhere and relax? Well, sure, man. I mean, you do what you want. You got a job to do, but certain things you won't do anymore. I don't know what they are, but you're going to see, if you start looking at what you do now versus what then, you probably some things you won't do. Take those off the budget. Life does get less expensive. What are some other suggestions? Insurance becomes an issue. We use Samaritan's Ministries. They do a great job of providing insurance, Christian insurance for us, and so other people we know. So there's stuff like that you'll have to encounter as well. But cars, gas, oil, factor that stuff in. You don't want to have a car. You want to have a car. You can ride public transportation. You don't have public transportation close. So that's what you begin to think through in your budget. Again, you're not more spiritual to spend less money. You can, the budget overall, one point on that is you can become legalistic if you don't have enough money, in a sense, and you begin to look at people who are spending money as if they're sinning. That can happen to you. You got to be careful. And also, you can, really, your life can be too worldly. You can spend, in other words, your budget can be such where you're living a relatively worldly life, and you really haven't transitioned in a missional life. That's possible as well on the other end. So we're back to the vision and schedule first. And you really come into grips with what is required. This is a scheduling statement to fulfill your vision. For me, what I've learned over the years is prayer is a huge part of my life. It has been for 20 years. The Lord taught me to pray. And praying 2 or 3 hours in the morning, really 3 hours from 4 to 7 every morning, that changes my schedule completely. It eliminates a lot of things I might otherwise do. And so what I found in mission ministry work, what I'm saying is that the requirement to be fruitful at it was quite a bit more significant in terms of spiritual things that I do than I anticipated. Prayer being one of those things. Study the scriptures being quite a bit more important than I anticipated. The time commitment, things like that. And so you'll learn those lessons along the way, and that's good. You need to learn some lessons. So in other words, what you think is maybe not worldly now might appear to be worldly in the future. And that's okay to make a shift. So as best you can, another thing you think about, like we homeschool. It works great for us and the family, what we want to do with our kids. If you're not homeschooling now, homeschooling might be something you do in the future. I just don't know. I'm not saying you have to homeschool to be a preacher, but certain things like that can arise. The Lord might be working in you because, see, again, in mission work, this is all discussions around the budget. You've got to protect the family from spiritual distraction and temptation and stuff like that. Being together is really important. I find that the homeschool, the way our life works, really facilitates us staying together as a family and protecting them from temptation and distraction and so forth like that. So there are things like that will crop up as well, perhaps over time or maybe initially as you begin to think things through. So pray about the schedule's key, and then pray about developing a budget to support the family or you and the ministry work. And once you've got that together, vision, schedule, budget, you're really ready to start asking people to partner with you. And that's kind of that simple. It's kind of that simple. So that's what I want to tell you. There's really no right or wrong answer on the budget or the schedule, but you just have to be able to sit in front of somebody and say, hey, this schedule gets this done. And if they ask you why you do or don't the things, you have to know this schedule gets that done. This is what we're doing. Because again, like I said on the last video, you're asking people to partner with you to get that done, and you're showing them this schedule gets that done, and this is what the budget is for, to fulfill the schedule, to fund the schedule to fulfill the vision. Hope that's helpful. Again, I encourage you to call me and talk to me about it. I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that are good at talking about these things. I don't really know, but I'm happy to talk to you about it. Hopefully I'm doing a decent job here, trying to just think out loud, talk about things. There's so much that you could talk about, but what I'm trying to do here is stimulate your thinking, prompt you to think about it, and encourage you to get going with it. And once you get going, then good questions come up. And then we can talk about those good questions as opposed to trying to answer all the questions up front. You answer questions along the way. Surely mission work is an ongoing process of learning and growing in the grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus. That is so true, both in your study of Scripture, your understanding of preaching, loving your family, raising your children. You increase in that understanding. The Lord begins to work in your life. Before He wasn't working as much. Now He is, because you really need Him to work. Things like that. So much begins to happen that having the idea that I can read a book, have a manual, answers all the questions, and then we're done with it, is kind of a mistake. I personally encourage the idea that you're going to grow every day. You're going to progress in your understanding every day. But you got to get started. Vision, schedule, budget is how to get started. Call me, 423-724-7500. Let's get this done for you, and you get rolling, and then we keep talking about situations that arise in your life as you begin to invite people to partner with you financially. Thanks for listening. Again, don't waste time. Life is but a vapor. Don't let it pass, friend. Don't let it pass.